What's up guys, 23D here. Today we will try to convert this picture into our 3D scene. It's a picture that I found on Pexels. Link is in the description so that you can follow along. Now before we begin, this exercise is for complete beginners and as such the pacing will be set accordingly. So if you have 0 to no experience in 3D, it's not going to be an issue. So now that formalities are out of the way, let's start blending, shall we? Very first thing that we need to get started is Blender. So go to this website and download the latest version of Blender. So why Blender? Well, because Blender is free and that makes it accessible to all of us. Now free does not mean it is not up to the industry standards. Trust me when I say this, it's more than capable of creating awesome things in 3D and then some. Once download is finished, install it and we are good to go. When you open the file for the very first time, choose general option. Since you do not have any other projects, Blender will show you only these settings. Just select general and we will see a new scene like this. So this is it. Welcome to the world of 3D. By default, you will notice that Blender has given us a cube, a camera and a light source. Let me enable my screencast keys so that we can see what buttons I'm pressing. Oh yeah, now there it is. So whatever buttons I'll be pressing, they will reflect over here. So let's briefly go over these menus. We will take a look at all of these in detail as and when we need them in the project. So first over here, this is our 3D viewport. If you want to reset this 3D scene, just go over here, new, general. These are the same settings that we got when we opened the file for the very first time. So if we choose general again, it will ask me to either save my settings or don't save. I will not save anything and this will reset my 3D viewport with the new default scene. There are certain other settings, like if I want to open a different blend file or recent files, then we can save our project with these, and these link and append settings. These have to deal with if you want to link an existing asset. If you have an object that you created and you want to bring into this scene, then we can append that blend file over here. Then if you want to import certain files into Blender, you can import from here. Same way this setting works. Then if you want to quit, then you can quit from here. But if you want to change certain properties of Blender, then you need to go to Edit, Preferences. There we have all the settings relating interface, viewport, editing, animation. You know, if you want to add certain themes, add-ons, or if you want to check out system information, these are all located here. These settings deal with how our project will be rendered, either as a single image or as an animation. Then we have certain modes like layout. This is the default one that we are using. Then we have a mode for modeling, sculpting, UV editing, texture painting, shading, animation, rendering, compositing. Blender can do a lot of things, so there is no need to get overwhelmed with these. Just remember, we will use a few of these as our project moves forward. If you come down here, this tells us which mode we are working with. Right now we are in 3D viewport. If I change this to UV editor and come back here, now you can see that UV editor is highlighted in blue. So now I know that I'm currently working with UV editor mode. And same way, if I move to shader editor, this will be highlighted. So let's switch back to 3D viewport. Then over here we have a bunch of modes like object mode, edit mode. Object mode is the default one that we are currently using. Then we have edit mode, then sculpt mode, then vertex paint, weight and texture paint. Since we are beginners, we will only be looking at object and edit mode. The rest of these will just complicate matters for us and we will not be covering these. What is an object mode and what is an edit mode? Object mode in a very simplistic manner means it has to do with a rotation, scaling or moving of your object as a whole, right? If we want to do all of these things, we will use object mode. But let me reset it. If I want to edit the internal mesh of my object, then I will use edit mode. Don't worry, we will take a look at these in detail. very soon. Then over here we have view settings like toolbar. This is our toolbar. I can hide or unhide it by pressing T. Same way, the next is sidebar. Let me go back to my item properties. So if I come here, this sidebar tells us the properties of our object like location, rotation, scale and dimensions. Then there are a bunch of other settings too. Select settings deal with selecting an object. If you wish to select something, just left click it and it will be selected. Anything that I select will be highlighted with this orangish outline. Now in Blender, there are multiple ways to select something. Most common would be drag and select option. Like if you left click anywhere on the viewport and then drag it, a box will be created and anything in that box will be selected automatically. Now what if I want to remove one of these objects from my selection? So I can do that just by pressing Ctrl and box select. Now this camera is no longer included in my selection. Same way I can deselect my light too. To select everything, we can press A to select all. If you want to deselect everything, select none, Alt A. So if we press Alt A, like you can see that I pressed Alt A, everything is deselected. Let's say you want to invert your selection, then Control I. I think this is universal command in almost every other software. Control I is to invert your selection. Then box select we already checked. Then there is circle select option, lasso select, select camera. We will get back to these as and when we need them. Otherwise these will just overwhelm us. From this menu, we can add objects to our 3D scene. By default, anything that we add will be added over at this point. Let me move my cube away. This cursor, this is called 3D cursor. So anything that I add will be added over here. Let's say I want to add another cylinder. So if I add this, it's now automatically added over here. You can also move this cursor anywhere. If you want to move it from this toolbar, just select this cursor and now wherever I press left mouse click, my 3D cursor will be placed over there. Now let's say I want to add another cube. That cube will be added to this point because now my 3D cursor rests over here. We can also move 3D cursor by shift right click. That's the shortcut key if you do not want to use this. What if I want to move this 3D cursor back to its original location? So how do we do that? We just press Shift S and then select cursor to world origin. So this is world origin. So now we have just transferred our 3D cursor to the world origin. If you want to select multiple items, while my cube is selected, I will press Shift and then left mouse click on my cylinder and this will select 2 items at once. Now if I press X and delete, both of these items will be deleted. Then this chain icon deals with transform pivot point options. So what is a pivot point? Let me move my cube a little. This orange dot, this is our pivot point. Pivot point in Blender is the point around which an object rotates or scales. Then over here we have snapping and proportional editing tools. We have certain gizmos over here and overlays are these lines, blue, green lines and these checkered lines. We can enable or disable them, but I recommend that we keep these on for this exercise. If we hover over any setting in Blender, it will try to tell us what that setting does. Right, so if we come back here, now we can see that this has to do with toggling our X-ray mode on or off. Shortcut command is Alt Z. So if I press Alt Z, now you can see, now we can see through our object. Alt Z to enable it, Alt Z to disable it. Next setting is wireframe mode. This gives us a wired representation of our object. As you can see, now my cube is represented as an outline only. Then this is viewport shading, solid mode. This is the mode we were already working with, and by default when you're modeling, this will be the mode you will be using. Then this third one is material preview mode. This is the mode we will use when we want to texture our object. This last one is the render viewport mode. This mode is for when we want to finalize our render. As you can see, now my light source has become more realistic. It behaves realistic now. It's interacting with my object in a realistic manner. This mode is the most accurate representation of our final render. but this one also happens to be the most taxing. So let's switch back to our viewport solid mode and we are good to go. So our next topic is movement in Blender. How do we move around in Blender? Before we go there, a simple request, please buy a 3-button mouse, as that will make your life very easy in Blender. So how do we move around in Blender? It's very simple, you just press middle mouse button. That's it. To go left, you move your mouse to the left while simultaneously pressing the middle mouse button. To go right, you do the same, just go right. That's it. Up, down. It's very intuitive. Let's say you do not wish to rotate your mouse, but you still wish to move your viewport. Then you can do that by pressing Shift and middle mouse button. With this, I can move my cube or my viewport, but my rotation will be disabled. Scroll up to zoom in, scroll down to zoom out. It's that simple. Now let's just say even after that you're adamant you do not wish to invest in a 3-button mouse, then you need to come over to Edit, Preferences, go to this setting, Input, and under Mouse tab, press Emulate 3-button mouse. This will allow you to emulate the scroll wheel function of the mouse with Alt. You can see that it says Emulate middle mouse with Alt plus left mouse. So now you can emulate the same. If by chance you do not even have a numpad, then you can come over here and emulate numpad 2. Move an object, we just press G to grab, and this allows us to move the object anywhere we want in 3D space. You can see now my outline around the object has changed from orange to white. This is telling us that grab mode is still active. When you're happy with where you want to put the cube, you will just press left mouse click and that will finalize your movement. We can move any object by this, but just by pressing G, grab and move. G and grab anywhere we want and then left click to finalize the selection. If we want to move an object in a limited manner, then how do we do that? Then for that, Blender has these 3 axes. This red one is X axis, this green one is your Y axis, and then there's another axis that goes up and down, that is Z axis. It's in blue color. So let me remove my annotations and select my select box. So let's say if I want to move my cube on a particular axis, I will press G. And let's say I want to move it on X axis, I will press X and then it will now only move on X axis. Same way G and Z, then it will only move on Z axis. Same way if I press G and Y, now my cube is only moving on Y axis. If I enable my sidebar by pressing N on keyboard, you can see, let me reset my location. I will just press Alt G. Now you can see everything is 0. Location, rotation is 0. So now if I move my cube, G, Z, you can see now only the Z coordinates of location are updated and rest are still zeros. That means it is now moving my cube by 5 meters on Z axis, positive 5 meters. If we press S, we can scale things. We can also axis lock it by pressing S. And let's say I want to scale on Z axis, then it will only scale my cube on Z axis. If I press SX, now it's scaling on X axis, and if I press S and Y, it will scale only on Y axis. If I move my camera, you can see it has scaled our cube on the Y axis. To reset our scale, we just press Alt S. To rotate our object, we will press R. R we can rotate. This is a free rotation. Again, if I wish to rotate on a particular axis, I will press R and then press that particular axis, let's say X, and then my cube will rotate on that selected axis. Then one last thing that we need to cover over here is this orthographic view. These gizmos. These allow us to move between 2D and 3D view. Orthographic view is 2D representation of our 3D scene. This is very handy when we want to model something in a realistic manner. right? So shortcut keys for that are number 1 on keypad will give you front orthographic view or front view, and number 3 on keypad will give you right orthographic view, side view, and then 7 on numpad will give you top orthographic view. So again, 1 for front view, 3 for side view, and 7 for top view. If I want to access the bottom view, right now I'm in top view, I want to see the bottom part of the object, then I will press Control and 7. That gives us the other side of our object. Let's say I want to access back view. 1 will get me front view. If I press Control and 1, that will give me back view. Similarly, 3 is for right view. If I want to access left view, then I will press Control plus 3. So this way you can move around an object in orthographic views. So just remember 1, 3 and 7. 1, 3, 7. 1 for front view, 3 for side, and 7 for top view. You can also access these from here. This is your numpad 1 and front view, and I think this is right view, and this might be yeah, this is top view. You can also access these from here if you do not wish to remember these shortcuts 1, 3 and 7. Same way, if you want to move your cube on particular axis and not use those keyboard shortcuts, you can come over here, use this move tool, and this is for rotation. Similarly, this is the scale tool, and this is your transform tool. This has all the tools combined, right? You can move, rotate. How do we rotate? Rotate. Damn it, it's not rotating. Okay, rotate and scale. It's not scaling. How do we scale? Okay, it's supposed to scale. It's not scaling. Yeah. So yeah, this is how you can scale too. So yeah. So this concludes our object mode. So now let's look into edit mode. Edit mode in Blender lets us make changes to the internal structure of our mesh object, allowing us to edit vertices, edges, and faces. We can come over here, and from this drop-down menu, we can switch between different modes. Or we can press shortcut key Tab. Once we activate edit mode, now you can see our cube has changed visually. We can now see the internal mesh of our object. Now let's take a look at what these are. First of all, every 3D object is made up of 3 things: vertices, edges, and then faces. A vertex is just a point in 3D space with X, Y, and Z coordinates. These are fundamental building blocks of our 3D objects. Let me remove my annotation. And edges are these lines that connect 2 or more vertices. And faces, this is a face, this is a face, and faces are the surfaces created by these edges. These faces are the ones what you actually see when you render your mesh object. So this is a face, this is a face, this is a face. Now if I go into object mode, you can see only faces are visible, edges and vertices are hidden. So to make changes in our mesh, we have to go into edit mode. Let me clear my annotations. If we come over here, these 3 buttons allow us to work with particular mode. Like if you wish to work only with vertices, you will select this mode. This is vertex select mode. You can see now I can see these points. And if I want to work only with edges, then I will come over here and select edges. And if I want to work only with faces, then I will select face select mode. This will allow me to select faces, single face, or by holding and pressing shift, multiple faces. Shortcut command for these is 1, 2, and 3 on the keypad. And to add new faces, let's say I want to add new faces, we will use the command E to extrude. If I press E, now a new face has been created and it is extruded on the normals of the faces. So, what are normals in Blender and what's their purpose? Face normals are vectors that are perpendicular to the surface of the face. These determine how lights and textures interact with our object. So, right now we have this default cube. So, let me zoom in and let me show you what it does. So, first of all, we need to be in edit mode to visualize it. Let's go into edit mode. And then we also need to enable this under these mesh edit mode overlays, right? Under this setting, we need to enable these face normals or display normals. Then you can see there is something coming out of our faces, right? Object faces. Let's increase the size so that we can visualize it properly. So now you can see there are these lines that are coming out of our faces, objects faces, and so again, these are very essential when we are modeling and when we are extruding something, and sometimes there is a possibility we might end up flipping these normals. So let me give you one more example. Let's enable our face orientation. Where is it? Yeah, under these viewport overlays, if we come down here, there is this face orientation. It will show us it is the correct orientation of our faces. So right now everything is normal. So right now it's white. So let's say under this face select mode, let me select this face. Let's flip the normals for only this face. Let's come over here under, I think, yes, under mesh, normals, Alt N is the shortcut, and let's only flip this one. Now you can see it has become red. So now you're saying, what would it mean, right? So basically this it has flipped it, and it was supposed to be inside of it. If I come inside our cube, you can see everything is marked as red. This means Blender won't render these, right? So only the normals that are facing correctly will be rendered properly. So let me give you another example. If I come to like shading material, shading tab, and let's say we give it a material. It already has a material. Let's give it like let's give it a green blue material. And now right now there isn't any issue. If I like switch my face orientation, it will also show us a blue color. But let's add a sub D modifier. If I add my sub D modifier, now you can see everything else has been squished, right? Now my cube is trying to convert itself. These normals that are facing the right way, those faces have been squished, right? You can see that right now we have a sphere, half sphere, but only this face, it has remained the same. So this will give us problems. So if our normals are not facing correctly, we will have issues. Like this sub D modifier is not working on it properly, so we will have issues. Let's select this face and press Alt N right now. This is the shortcut. If you remember, if we come over here, normals, Alt N is the shortcut. So if we flip it now, you can see now this has become into a beautiful sphere. This is what normals will do while we are modeling. So we have to make sure that normals are facing the correct way. Only in edit mode this command is visible to you. So if I go back in edit mode, it's not visible because it has to do with the mesh of the internal mesh of the object. This command only becomes available when we are in edit mode. So you can see normals, Alt N, flip or recalculate outside. These three settings, these are more than necessary for, let's say, 90% of the time of our beginners exercise. We will use these. Either flip normals, recalculate outside, or recalculate inside. That's it. These three are more than sufficient for our beginner's course. We can also extrude faces. Like in object mode, you can also extrude faces on a particular axis, restrict it like on x-axis or y-axis. So you can see that it is now tilted towards y-axis. This command works on all modes. If I wish to extrude vertices, I will press E to extrude and then X to align it to the X-axis. Same way I will extrude this other one too, E, X, and it will be extruded. Let's say I want to join these vertices. I will press F. This will fill the void. Now let's say I want to fill this area with a face. While these two vertices are selected, I will select this one and this vertex, and if I press F now, why is it happening? Oh, you can see I accidentally selected this one, this bottom vertex, and cause of this we got this result. So we don't want that. So let's undo it by Control Z and deselect this particular vertex by holding Control and left mouse click. So now if I press F, a new face will be created. Let's extrude some more before we finish it. You can see now I can make random extrusions, left, right, center, whatever I want to do. I can do that, and this is how we model objects in Blender. Now that is out of the way, and I think we have covered most of the basics that will help us with our project. Now go to File, New, and select General, and don't save. This will again give us a new default scene. For the time being, I do not need this cube, so press X and delete it. Now we have a completely empty scene, and we wish to add a reference, a guide, so that we can follow along. So how do we do that? If you remember, we can add objects to our 3D viewport by pressing Shift A. This will give us add menu, or by coming over here, this also gives us the same menu. So by pressing Shift A, this will give us loads of options. We can add lots of things like mesh objects, plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, curve objects, text, but we don't need all of these things. So for the time being, we just want to add our image that we downloaded from Pexels. So come down here where it says image and select reference. Once you do that, Blender will ask us for a path. Go to where you have saved your image and bring it into the scene. So we have added our reference image. And if we move around our 3D viewport, immediately you will notice that it's not perfectly aligned to our scene, right? This is not what I wanted. I wanted to work in front view, and it's completely facing the wrong direction. So what do we do? If you remember the first thing that I said before we started, that in 3D, your perspective is everything. So there are two ways we can fix this. One way is just make sure you're in the right view. In our case, that is front view. So press 1 on the numpad, and I think Y on your gizmos. So first way, or the easy way, is we just delete this file, and in this front orthographic view, we just add another image, Shift A, reference, and now you can see this image is perfectly aligned. If I move my 3D viewport, you can see this one is perfectly aligned. And if I delete it, let's try to fix this one. So how do we do that? First of all, let's bring our sidebar. We can either get it from here or just by pressing N. Now if I see here, it is showing us our properties. Location is 0, rotation has certain numbers, values, and scale is 1. This is correct, but this is not correct. So if I press Alt R is to reset rotation. So if I press Alt R, now you can see my rotation is zeroized. Now if I go back to my front view, and if I now rotate this image by, like, let's say, rotate my x-axis, right, it is getting aligned. So if I press 90 degrees over here, now you can see it's perfectly aligned to my front view. Numpad 1 will get me front view. So now this is good. I will press N again to get rid of this sidebar. Now before we save, I want to make sure that this image rests upon this x-axis. So how do we do that? How do we move anything? We move things by pressing G and Z. Since we need to move this up, our axis will be Z axis, right? because you can see from this view our x-axis is sideways, and if I want to move front and back, that would be y. So we just want to move this image on the z-axis. So if I do this, now it rests somewhere here, or there's another way. Let me reset my location, Alt G. Now we will do the same thing, G, Z, but if I press Control now and then move my mouse, you can see now it's moving in increments, right? It's snapping to increments, those small lines, and when it comes over here, it's now perfectly aligned with our x-axis, and this is what I want. So now come over here, save this project and save it as whatever name you want to put it. So I will save it as new file .blend. Make sure you do not delete accidentally this .blend file, because this is the extension from which Blender reads its file. So we can type any name before this dot, and that's it. Save it, and this is our first project.